want to talk about kind of your past and how you got to where you're going. Want to talk about my main man Dustin. He's on a flight right now, so he won't be able to tune in with us. He's making sure that we are mandated as soon as this gets done that we got to send him a copy. So
Okay.
I know he's excited to hear our conversations, man. But want to talk about, first off, I want to kind of talk. You have a new show coming up, Brockmire. I want to kind of tell you, or you to tell us how that got inspired and kind of what made you create that character.
Well, we just finished season 4 just finished airing. All 4 seasons are on Hulu right now, and
Gotcha.
you can binge them all if you got nothing to do during quarantine time. If you're
There you
lucky
go.
enough to have your biggest problem be, what should I binge today?
Right.
Check out Brockmire. But
Right.
yeah, it's a character that I've been doing since I was like 15. It's an imitation of a baseball announcer from
Okay.
the 70s, especially. Guys who talk like this.
Right.
Guys
Right.
who give the count after everything I say. Oh, that one
For
got
sure.
in Johnson's hands. It looks like breaking ball outside. One of those. One of
Right.
those
Right.
guys. And
Right.
I just started imagining, what if, do these guys always talk like that? And
Right.
like in their personal lives too? Like, do they
Right.
dirty talk during sex like that? Do they talk
Exactly.
like that when they're drunk? And
Right.
so
Right.
we did a sketch on Funny or Die a while ago, like 10 years ago, and it got popular. So we developed it into a television show. First it was a movie,
Uh-huh.
which we almost made, and we were actually in pre-production for 5 weeks, and then we lost our money 4 days before shooting. So like a lot of things in show business, it took tremendous persistence and, coming back from tremendous disappointment. And I really started doing it because I've worked as an actor for about 35 years, but you have downtimes as an actor. Like, you're essentially just an independent contractor. You
Right.
just kind of wait for the phone to ring.
Right.
And so in those downtimes, I was like, well, I kind of love this character. Let me see if I can't develop something for it.
Right.
And it literally took like 10 years from when we had the idea to when we finally got it on the air.
Right. 10 years. Is that a normal or is that regular for you guys to go through that much production and then all of a sudden for the plug to get pulled finance wise?
Well, at that point, that was like maybe 5 years into the journey. And then a few years later, we made it a TV show. But yeah, I'd say only 1 or 2 things out of every 10 that you try to get made only actually really see the light of day.
Right.
And those things, from like when you have an idea to when you sell the idea to when you get a script to when you finally shoot the script to
Right.
when the script actually gets picked up, is usually many years, a few years
Right.
at least. Maybe not 10, but at least 2 or
Right.
3.
Right. 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 So you've been doing the Brockmire series for 4 years?
Yes, we had planned to do it for 4 years. That's what we ended up doing, and we're done now.
You're all done now.
We're all
Gotcha.
done now. Yeah.
Got you. What's next on the docket for you?
I don't know, actually. I'm psyched to kind of take some time off, and I do The Simpsons. Almost. I've
Hmm.
been doing that for 32 years, so that always goes on.
Right.
And I've got other scripts that now I'm in the middle of a many years long process of trying to get those made.
Right.
Not even for myself to be in, just to produce.
Right.
And you mentioned Dustin Washington. I've been doing
Hmm.
some work with him with Soul Focus Group, and I'm very psyched to be working with those guys and see if we can't help each other
For sure.
bring some of that stuff into Hollywood and elsewhere. And I got an 11-year-old boy, and I enjoy hanging out with him. And
For sure.
it takes a lot to kind of get me off the bench, as it were. Now,
Right. 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 Right.
um, so I'm sure something will come along. But for right now, I'm pretty psyched to just get myself and my family through this crazy virus time that we're in, and then
No
see where
kidding.
we land after that. Yeah.
No kidding. No kidding. Has speaking about Dustin Washington, what Dustin's been coaching with us for wow, almost 10 years now, and just incredible individual, man. I mean, even the growth that he's made personally, he was already, one of my favorite human beings beforehand, and he's just really been doing a lot of work with himself. Tell us a little bit about your work with Soul Focus and kind of how you got involved with them.
Well, I've been on a journey about the last 7 years, really, of looking into social justice and racial awareness, and
Hmm.
um, you know, through the character of Apu on The Simpsons, I really kind of had to wake up, if you will, to
Right.
what the problem with that character is all about. And in the course of doing that and really deciding whether to keep doing the character or not,
Right.
I really had to educate myself. And so I did many seminars, I read a lot, I talked to many people. And Dustin is one of the people that I met along the way a few years ago. I took an anti-racist seminar that he led through the People's Institute. He worked with them then. And
Hmm.
then we really connected on a lot of levels. And I'm actually training with him and Mahdi now to become a facilitator, become somebody who helps lead those seminars,
Yeah.
which I'm still midway through my training, but
That's tough.
it takes a lot. Yeah, but it's been really worthwhile. And he's become a really good friend. And so, yeah, and so just continuing the work, that doesn't end just when you make a decision about doing a cartoon character or not,
Exactly.
or whatever it is they have to make a decision about.
Right.
And so, yeah, I'm continuing that work with Dustin. I'm really grateful to him and to many people uh,
Sure.
at So Focused and elsewhere for helping me along that on
Right.
that journey.
Right. Right. Yeah, man. It's been crazy, man. I went to some of those seminars, and it's crazy how impactful. I mean, you literally watch people get transformed in right in front of you. You know what I mean? And you have to go into it with like a willingness to be vulnerable and be open and be real in front of people you may not be that close with. But the
Yes.
people that really open up, I mean, in a weekend, you can really see change, and they can get kind of heated sometimes, and people can get defensive and whatnot. But him, Madi, Martin, and that whole crew that they have working there, when they're all in a flow, I mean, it's just it's like clockwork. It's like a show. So it's
Yeah, it's
incredible.
amazing.
Yeah, it's
Yeah, they've all
incredible stuff.
become good friends, and yeah, those seminars are unbelievable.
Yeah,
They create a really safe environment for everybody to be honest, and it's not always comfortable, but it is always safe and respectful.
exactly.
And it's really cool. It's an amazing thing to see. It's a place where white people can aren't shamed for what they don't know, and people of color are not placed in a position to have to try to explain racism to white people,
Right,
and yet somehow all of that happens. Like it creates an incredible connection,
for sure.
and so I'm trying to help spread the word, at least in Hollywood, and like expose those guys to as many people as I can.
Exactly.
And we've been doing it. It's been great. They've already done it a couple of times. There's a few more scheduled, and
Yeah, he's told me. Obviously,
yeah,
COVID makes it a little bit more challenging, but
yeah, that's be Zoom now, which is
right.
not preferable, but yeah,
It's not. It doesn't have the same impact. It doesn't have the same impact. It's kind of like gambling online versus going to the casino, man. It's just a whole nother experience. It's a
exactly,
whole nother
exactly.
can of worms. What made you get interested in social justice a couple years ago?
Well, I had the character of Apu that I did the voice of, called out basically,
Hmm.
and so I had really had to like I started looking at it. I was really taken aback that the character received criticism. This was like 7 years ago.
Hmm.
It was like the first I'd ever heard of that, and I'd been doing the character at that point for like 25
20
years.
years, right?
And so essentially, as I started taking it seriously, I was like, what is this? Is this real or not? Is this like 17 hipsters in a
Yeah, trolls,
microbrewery in
right,
Brooklyn just
right,
like deciding who should say what? Or is this
right,
like a genuine complaint
right,
from the South Asian community in this
right,
country? And that wasn't a and then if it was a genuine complaint, should I actually stop doing the voice or not? And if so, why?
right.
And that took me a couple of years to really get to the bottom of. And that's what got me into looking into all this in earnest.
And for the people who don't know, what were they so upset about?
Well, it was a couple of things. It was the character. First of all, I'm a white guy doing a very stereotypical, over the top, kind of caricaturish voice
Right, right,
of an Indian guy. That's number
right,
one. Number two, the character itself, there was some great and funny things about it. There was also some marginalizing and stereotypical and not great things about it.
Hmm.
And you know, I think it was a bunch of things. For about 20 years, you know, the character premiered in like 1988 or 89, and
Right.
for 20 years, it was basically the only representation of Indian people in American pop culture.
Right.
So that was hard. It wasn't like one of many voices that you could just laugh off.
Right.
It was like a whole generation of people, a couple of generations of people who grew up with that character um, as the only way people identified Indian people in our culture,
Right.
which wasn't ideal for them in many circumstances, to say the
Right.
least. And it just was a drag. It almost to the point of becoming a slur, like the character who became like a demeaning way to think of Indian people.
Right.
And so, you know, my hope is that on The Simpsons that the character might continue in a more respectful way, voiced by an Indian person, and in something that's, you know, more appropriate to what we know now as a culture, and more respectful. Hopefully, equally as funny, but more respectful.
Right. So you think so you would be okay with are you still with The Simpsons right now?
I still work on The Simpsons. I don't do that character, but I work on The Simpsons. Yeah.
What character are you doing now?
I do many. I've done like literally dozens of voices on the show for the last 32
Oh,
years. My
really?
my other main voice, yeah, my main running characters are like Police Chief Wiggum and Mo the bartender and
Hmm.
Comic Book Guy and Snake the convict and Professor Frink and many
Right.
others. Um,
Have you always been good at with voices? Has that always been your? You think? So let me ask you a better question. You've been voice? You've been a voice actor and obviously an on-screen actor, right?
yes,
So do you enjoy the process? Which process do you enjoy better?
I've always been a mimic, which is how I started doing those Simpsons voices.
Okay.
I literally auditioned when I was 22 years old, and
Hmm.
so, and then I apply that often to my acting work. Like I'll do characters with accents or
Right.
crazy voices,
Right.
but you know, I'll do that on camera or for animation.
Right.
And I've done that many times. And I love doing it all. You know,
Hmm.
I enjoy doing characters and also enjoy playing characters that are closer to myself.
Right.
Sometimes, you know, just my voice, sometimes on stage or on film.
Hmm.
Whatever it is, I feel fortunate that I get to do
Right.
it.
Right. How do you pick and choose your projects? I'm sure you get bombarded sometimes with maybe smaller projects, and then obviously there's some things that you have to do to kind of prioritize the bigger projects and big movies. What's your process of selecting what you want to get involved in?
You know, now, I mean, I'm lucky enough for the last bunch of years to not have to audition really, so I get offered
Right.
stuff. And you know, with an 11-year-old and you know, having done a lot of stuff
Right.
and with fortunately, I don't really have to do stuff for the money anymore. So
Right.
it takes kind of a lot, and I don't really want to leave New York. My son is here, so
Right.
I kind of pretty much only do things that are in New York that look like they're going to be fun that I seem like I have time for,
Right.
or if it's a great role, but great roles don't come along that often.
Hard to come by.
Like the
What?
last cool thing I did apart from Brockmire was I did Ray Donovan. I did like 3 seasons of
Hmm.
that, and I
Hmm.
almost didn't do it because I didn't want to leave New York, and my agents were like, "Are you still an actor or
Yeah.
what? You know,
Right.
like you
Right.
can't
Right.
turn
Right.
this down." And so I very
Right.
begrudgingly did it.
Right.
And my agent was like, "Who knows? You might win an Emmy for it." I'm like, "Oh, I'll never win an Emmy for this
Right.
role." And I actually
Right.
did win an Emmy for that role 3 years
Right.
later, but I almost didn't do that. You know, it kind of takes a lot to get me off the bench, as it were.
Right, right, right. That makes sense. That makes sense. What was one of your most challenging roles that you had to play?
Um,
And I guess more importantly, what did you learn about yourself from playing those roles? What challenged you the most?
the hardest roles are the ones where you have to be really emotional,
Mm,
really either sad or angry,
mm-hmm.
or playing things like, and you have to kind of go to a place you don't want to really go. Like one of the hardest ones, 20 years ago, I was just recently divorced, so I was really sad.
Mm-hmm.
And I got the role I got to, there's a mini series that NBC did about the Holocaust, about the Warsaw Ghetto uprising, the Holocaust, and I'm Jewish. My background is Jewish. That's my ethnicity,
Mm-hmm.
and so I had to go, to Eastern Europe where we shot it, and act out the Holocaust like every day, and I started really bumming out. That was like
Right.
not fun in particular, and I started getting actually really depressed for
Right.
real. I was
Right.
like, why am I getting depressed? And I was like,
Right.
well, because I'm pretending the Holocaust is real every day and
Exactly.
I'm reliving it.
Exactly.
So those are like actors will always hear like days on set where you have to like cry, in
Right.
a scene. Uh,
Right. Rough.
I'm always glad that I accomplished it, but it's never my favorite day. I'd always rather be working on a comedy where you're just trying to figure out how to have fun and make people laugh
Exactly.
rather than how to bum yourself out.
What do you feel like you learned something from that, or do you feel like it's kind of like a feather in the cap? Like, hey, this diversifies my abilities as an actor.
It took a lot of technique to learn how to do it, like to tap in that emotion and then be, not relaxed enough on camera to convey that. So
Right.
that was tremendous accomplishment. But
Right.
I don't know that I learned anything other than that I could do it. It's just
Like
like
what
a
your
bummer,
boundaries
really.
are.
Yeah,
Right.
it's just not really. It's not fun.
How do you? I feel like there's a lot of. I feel like there's a lot of like misconstruction. I'm sure you would agree in the media, in terms of trying to change narratives and twist truths and whatnot to build propaganda. What do you tell, maybe not necessarily your son, but it very well could be. How do you suggest people kind of navigate media and Hollywood and information that comes out and to kind of think critically, especially about the racial issues? How would you say, basically, kind of like, what are you conveying to your son right now during the Black Lives Matter movement and the racial injustices and whatnot?
Well, part of why I took so seriously looking into social justice and racial awareness as a white person was because I wanted to be able to look my son in the eye and convey to him the right message. And to me, that started with education. Everything does, whether it's racial issues or political issues or
Hmm.
Black Lives Matter or um, anything else that you're going to take in through the media.
Right.
Um, it's just, it's not to trust the first thing you might see or what you might see on social media on either side. You want to try to get at what the truth is, which usually is nuanced, usually is um, isn't black or white, if you'll pardon the pun, isn't one thing or another.
Right.
It's usually multifaceted, and before one like forms an opinion and one and swings in on a hot vine on social
Right.
media or anywhere
Right.
else with a hot opinion,
Right.
you might want to educate yourself on what both sides say and what the truth might be. It took me, I see as the enemy of society right now, not so much one side or the other, but the contentious nature, the sort of knee-jerk reactionary, pick a side angrily and angrily nature to all our conversations right now.
Right.
And um, it just gets in the way of what the truth might be.
Right.
And so whether even just getting the news, where you get the news from, can be, you got to be really careful.
For sure.
Um,
The mainstream
and
media.
yes, and finding what a source you can trust
Hmm.
is like the first uh,
Objective
is the
number one.
first goal.
Yeah.
And one of the things that's wonderful about what Soul Focus does, for example, in their seminars, is just laying out the truth of American history. For example, I was blown away to find out like the real history of racism in this country, the history of slavery, the history of and how so much of it was economically driven.
For
It wasn't
sure.
so much hate driven as
For
it was
sure.
just dollars and cents driven.
Capitalism, right?
Was really blew me away.
Right.
Um, so, it's maybe reserving judgment until you feel like you have all the facts, no matter which side you come in on,
Right.
would be uh, would be really helpful.
Right. Right. So we're a basketball training academy. We work with young guys, and we pride ourselves on, not just teaching the game of basketball, but mentorship. And I feel like success is, it's true success, and sustained success is a challenge, right? It's not just about kind of getting to the quote unquote top or reaching your pinnacle, but staying there, right? And I feel like you've had, clearly with, the length of your run, I'm sure you've had peaks and valleys and whatnot. But what would you say contributed to a lot of your success, and what if you had like kind of a message to young athletes that may not necessarily want to be successful in acting, but a lot of our audience is basketball or sports related. How does that kind of coincide, and what are some consistencies that you would say that you would want to give from a message standpoint to the youth about success?
Well, I mean, I'm not an athlete, but there's certain parallels I think that can be drawn between a career in show business and a career in athletics. They're both really, really, really difficult.
Right.
I think that both take a lot of talent and a lot of persistence and a lot of hard work. Um, I think with athletics, if your ability is off the charts, you are going to make it one way or another.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe separate from your persistence level.
Right.
Because as a young person, you're going to be singled out and the way is going to be made for you.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas that's not necessarily the case as much in entertainment or in acting.
Right.
You're going to have to at least meet it halfway with showing an interest in it and learning the craft of it.
Right.
But I would say this, the greatest in sports and in entertainment all share that combination of talent, hard work, and persistence.
Right.
In the same way that, there's probably only a handful of guys who are as talented as Michael Jordan was,
Mm-hmm.
but Michael's work ethic and desire and persistence were completely off the charts.
For sure.
And that separated him from maybe the other, because there's only one Michael. Maybe there were 30 other guys who were as talented as Michael.
Right.
But what separated him from those guys was his focus.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And his ability to turn negatives into positives and just not push himself so hard and find that to be the real game.
Right.
And I worked with a great actor named Jack Lemmon, who was a legend, an Academy Award-winning legend. I worked with him late in his life, and when he was like sharing his wisdom, and he said he never stopped being a student, never stopped learning till the day he died. He always felt like he was a student of acting.
Right.
I think Michael probably felt the same way through the end of his career.
For sure.
And I think LeBron still does. And Tom Brady, there's guys who just never, they just hunger for increasing themselves. Yes. And adjusting their game to how it changes over the years and how their physical abilities change.
For sure.
They keep adapting.
For sure. For everybody tuning in right now, I know you guys got some good questions, man. We're gonna do a quick little question and answer session at the end. But right now, we got some topics we got to make sure we cover here. So we'll open it up for question and answer at the end. You're a big sports guy from what I understand. Is that right?
Yes, I love sports.
Who's your top basketball teams?
Well, sadly,
are you a Knick guy?
I'm a New Yorker. I'm from Queens. I'm Mets, Jets, and Knicks, and okay. Sadly for me.
Could you ever transition over to the Nets to Brooklyn?
I tried, Kel. I have tried because it's so masochistic being a Knicks fan that I've tried to. I mean, I like the Nets. I was a huge Dr. J fan when I was growing up, and when he was a Net, and I loved the ABA as a kid and watching him play for the Nets. Mm-hmm. But no, it would be a happier story for me right now if I could enjoy the Nets. And I love the Barclays Center. I love watching games. That's a beautiful arena. I love going to games there. But I bleed orange and blue for the Knicks and the Mets, and
I hear
I've
you.
tried to change. I just can't.
I hear you. I hear you. How do you think? I think sports has a great way of bringing people together, and unity is one thing that I feel is going to help in a large way in terms of we're dealing with the racial social injustice and the racial tensions. How do you feel sports, not only sports figures, but just sports in general? Because I think that there's with COVID and just a lot of stuff, there's going to be a new norm, right? So fans are going to be different. I know the NBA is playing in a bubble right now with no fans and whatnot, but long term, how do you see sports playing a role in the racial tensions? Because I mean, you look at a lot of sports, and there's minorities all over the place, if not even dominant in some sports. So how do you see that? Sports being able to assist us and move us in the right direction.
Remains to be seen. I mean, the NBA's been more outspoken than really any other league in this area, and that'll continue, and I imagine get ramped up. I mean, I know the players are thinking about, right, putting messages on their jerseys and
Right.
things like that. And the NBA is probably the most social media active of all the leagues, and that'll play a big role. And you know, I just hope that what this Black Lives Matter movement continues to gain traction as we come out of virus time and
Hmm.
as things settle down again and the dust settles. I hope that part of the new normal becomes not just a one-time interest from white people in our society in these issues, but I hope that just becomes incorporated as we move forward more and more.
For sure.
And I'm sure athletes speaking out will be a big part of that.
For sure, man. For sure.
I mean, we're just what Drew Brees went through. That
Right.
was huge. That was
Right.
huge. Given all that money, you know, these are all tremendous, tremendous signs of progress.
For sure. For sure. For sure.
The NFL turning around.
They're just slowly but surely, man. They I feel like they're feeling pressure. You know what I'm saying? I feel like that the one thing I will say about this movement is that it's put a lot of pressure on people, not only individuals, but just big industries to kind of pick a side. You know what I mean? In terms of or do you support and do you agree that there are some issues here that need to be resolved, or are you just kind of because not acting is an action too, right? If you just kind of sit back and say, oh, I don't want to get involved, that's the decision.
Yeah,
So I feel like it's forced people to really, you know, say what do you support this or not, and then if you do, okay, it's time to make some actions, time to make some moves.
yeah. It's easy to be asleep. Listen, I totally understand. As a
Hmm.
white person, I didn't think about this stuff because I didn't have to until through the issue of Apu, I kind of got reached out and grabbed with it.
Hmm.
And I'm just trying to, you know, and it's ongoing. My blind spots continue.
Right.
My unintended microaggressions
Right.
continue.
Right.
You never stop learning.
Right. For sure.
Yeah.
All right, we're gonna open it up for everybody. We're almost done with the live. We're gonna open it up for some questions. Shoot me your questions. I know there was some that was throughout the live stream, but go ahead, shoot over some questions and we'll get them done. I'm gonna start it off with the basketball question. What is your favorite Knick of all time? The greatest Knick who ever played?
Walt Frazier. I mean,
Unquestionably.
oh my God, I had posters of him. He was my hero as a kid. I had posters of him my all over my wall, and followed closely by Earl the Pearl Monroe. That backcourt they were unbelievable. And those Knicks back then, they were just godlike. Willis Reed and
Right.
Dave DeBusschere, Brill Bradley, and Clyde and Earl the Pearl. They were and Phil Jackson coming off the
Right.
bench.
Right. Right. Right.
Yeah, they were. But Walt Frazier, unquestionably.
Right. Right. What was your favorite character you've ever played in only in movies, not TV, just in movies?
Probably my character in the Birdcage, I guess.
That's my mom's favorite movie by far.
Uh, but I also liked the character I played in Mystery Men. That was really fun.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
a crazy movie. Yeah.
yeah. If you had to pick that or Birdcage, which one are you going with?
I guess Birdcage is the most beloved one through the years, but you
For
know,
sure. Where was that shot at?
that was on location on Miami in South Beach. But
Okay.
we were we were at a soundstage on Paramount in LA for most
Right.
of it.
Right. Right. Somebody wants to know, what do we have here? She said, what was it like to play David in Friends?
That was really fun. Matthew Perry was one of my best friends. We kind of came up together in LA, and I was really happy for him. That he had all that success, and
Hmm.
I came into that in season one. I started doing that, and it was like it was like being like Beatlemania. It was like it was crazy how
Right.
people went insane for that show. So it was
Right.
really cool to be a part of that for a while. Yeah, it
Right.
was
Right.
fun. Yeah.
Right. What's the craziest fan interaction you've ever had?
I would say, I mean, I've had a lot of weird ones. I remember one time it's a long time ago. I was on a show called Herman's Head. This was this weird like comedy in the early days of Fox, and I was at Disneyland because it was a Disney show, and I was in a bathroom in Disneyland, and I was peeing at a urinal, and the
Right.
guy came right up behind me, and was just smiling at me, and I'm peeing at a urinal. I'm like,
Right.
"Hi, can I help you?" And he goes, "You're the horny guy from Herman's Head." I was like, "Yeah, I'm also peeing right now, my friend."
Right.
So,
Right.
but I've had a lot of strange interactions. Yeah,
I can only
that one
imagine.
really stands out, though.
I can imagine. Imagine. That's a no conversation zone right there, man. Let me give me 5 to 10. We can talk. What next question? What's your favorite character in Anastasia?
Well, that would be Bartok, the little
Mhm.
albino bat that I played, who was based on a cousin of mine who actually sounded like this.
Based
Believe
on
it
a
or
cousin?
not, my cousin, yeah,
Oh man.
talked like this. It was a girl cousin, but whatever.
Whatever. Oh man. They got people going crazy over here, Hank. Man, you got a lot of fans, man.
Hello,
What
everybody.
what what's some place that you have not traveled to that you hope to do so with you and the family?
Greece is what my family, well, I'm a Sephardic Jew, which are Spanish Jews.
Okay.
I grew up in a Spanish speaking household. It's a weird language called Ladino. But my family's from Greece by way of Spain originally. And I'd like to Greece very much.
Greece would be amazing.
Yes.
Greece would be amazing. Have you been to Italy before?
Yes, I love Italy.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yes.
I was watching this show. If you get a chance, I know everybody's kind of on their binge tip, but it's called Home Game. Have you seen that on Netflix?
No, no, I haven't.
So the very first episode is about Florence, Italy, and it's basically like the game. The game is essentially a mix between rugby and like MMA, and they play once a year, and it's just like no pads, and
Wow.
you're there's 4 different sectors in Italy that you can be born into, and you're essentially born into like a color. So you're either on the red team, white team, blue team, or
Is
whatever.
this true? Is this real?
It's true. They're all true. So the home game is like they go to different countries and they do like cultural games, right? So people don't get paid. Now this is all like for like pride of the country, right?
Wow.
So it's called Home Game on Netflix, and it's the craziest thing I've ever seen. So you got these dudes that like train year round. Like, I mean, they have like full-time jobs, but once a year, you have because there's 4 different sectors of the country, and whatever you're born into, you play for that color for the rest of your life. There's I don't care if you
Wow.
move, whatever it is, but you've got these linemen, and then you have it's like rugby. You can do whatever, and you have to throw it in a goal. But I mean, they're literally like the linemen like square up, and they're like fighting, like people are breaking their jaws, like legs are getting broken. It's the
Oh, I gotta
craziest
check
thing
this out.
I've ever seen. By like I watched it twice. That's how crazy it was. But it's wild, man, for sure.
I'll definitely check it out.
Yeah. Somebody asked, will we be seeing you on Mad About You again?
I don't think so.
It's
I
not it.
doubt it.
It's not it.
No, I mean it's my ex-wife that's the star of that show. So if she feels like inviting me back in, I'd be happy to go on, but I don't know. I mean, we're friendly and everything, but not that friendly. I don't know.
Right.
Not
Right.
friendly enough that we need to work with each other again. So I
Right.
don't know.
Right. Someone said, did the Apu situation inform and inspire you in your role as Brockmire?
I mean, only in that I was already well down a road of having racial issues matter to me. And that informed some of what we did on that show. But that was really the creation of our head writer, Joel Church Cooper.
Right.
So it did, in the sense that I wanted to make sure that our writers' room was diverse, that we had, people of color writing for themselves. And so in that sense, absolutely.
Right. Right. Right.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate it, my man. It's always great having you on. Sorry I couldn't get it to everybody's questions, but again, I appreciate Hank shedding some light on his story and his journey, man.
Thank you very much for having me, Cal.
Of course, man. You stay cool over there in that heat, man.
Yeah, I'm gonna stay in the next couple of days.
Yeah, I bet. I bet. All right, my man. Appreciate you
Bye,
having me.
everybody. Take care. Thank
All
you.
right. Later.
Bye-bye.